Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Saimah's Experience. My name is Saimah and this channel is about all things Turo. So my goodness, some major changes going on in the Turo marketplace that are just a couple of days away that some of you guys might have read about, heard about. And so I'm going to go through all the major changes and kind of point out the things that you should really be aware of and what you should be prepared for in order to tackle these in the best way possible. Now, I've been a host on the platform for over 6 years, so I've pretty much seen every change that Turo has ever made, and these changes are really unlike anything I've seen happen before. So I'm really actually somewhat shocked at some of these changes, and so we'll break them down in just a second and go over exactly what it means for you. So you guys can follow along on the screen here as I go over each change and give you my best tips on what to do with them. So the first change that some of you might have heard of, and this is probably the one that I was the most shocked about, is that Turo is giving back 5% of the revenue to its host. So for example, if you're like me, you are on the 70% plan right now, which is kind of the nice sweet spot of host protection in my opinion, and you have a $250 deductible. As of Monday, July 19th, Turo will be giving you back 5% to that host protection plan. So your host protection plan will now default to 75% instead of 70%. Now, this is super exciting because once upon a time, this is actually what the host protection plans used to be. So it did go from 75 to 70. They took away 5% and now they're giving it back. So that's very, very exciting. The last time they made changes to the host protection plans was actually July of 2020. And that is when they added on deductibles and increased deductibles to the host protection plan. So before, when you were on that 75 or 70% plan, there was no $250 deductible. So it's really interesting to see that they are making a change in the favor of the host, and that is phenomenal. Now, what does that mean for you as a host? So first of all, it's very important to note that whatever protection plan you're on, aside from the 60% plan, that you will be defaulted to the one that is the closest to that. So if you're at the 70%, you're going to automatically default to 75%. If you're at the 80, that'll be 85, and so on. So you want to really take a moment before Monday comes and rethink your host protection plans and do the math, because 5% can actually really add to your bottom line, and it's a huge increase in revenue. When they took that 5% away a few years back, I mean, you really felt the pain of it. So I think that this is a really good time to kind of rework your numbers and think about that. Maybe it's worth it for you to go from the 75 to the 80 or from the 80 to the 85. You may be able to afford having higher deductibles by taking a smaller host protection plan and losing a little bit or giving up less on your host protection plan revenue and taking a higher deductible. That's something that I'll personally be doing because the math is going to work in my favor. So I'm very excited to see this change. I'm really happy to see that Turo is doing that because I think that that is very important to make this platform very compelling to hosts in order for them to continue to grow, stay on the platform, and just thrive in this type of marketplace. So kudos to you, Turo, for doing that. Glad to see that we're getting that back, and maybe in the future we can work on getting rid of some of those deductibles. Now, along with that, they are also doing a host take for all deliveries is increasing to 90%. So currently, as it stands, you get a percentage of your deliveries that matches whatever your host protection plan is. So if you're doing a delivery for $100 and your host protection plan is 70%, then you get 70% of that. Now, why that is, I have absolutely no idea. It obviously makes more sense that it should just be 90% across the board because the host is doing all the work. So, we should get the benefit of offering that additional service, which of course has additional cost to it, but overall provides a lot of value to the marketplace. So it never made sense to me that Turo took the percentage from your extras like deliveries that match your host protection plan, because they're not actually doing anything in that delivery process, and that's all host, and you should get that money, not the platform. So I'm glad that they are adjusting that because that never made any sense to me. Now, the next feature I'm very excited about, and this is what they are calling the last minute boost pricing. So what they are going to do is if somebody books same day, you will now have a setting where you can activate a 5 or a 10% price boost for a last minute booking. This is something I absolutely love because this is something that I was actually doing manually. So let's say we come upon a weekend and overall the marketplace is looking busy based on the market research that I've done. I typically tend to increase my prices to get that last minute booking versus decrease them, which is what most people sort of default to. Now, for Turo to make this change, it would indicate that that assumption that I've had is in fact accurate, that if the market is performing well and is busy and a lot of cars are getting booked, then you can definitely capture a higher day rate on a last minute booking from somebody who is really looking to grab a car. So this is a setting that I have definitely initiated. It went live this past Monday, July 12th, and I'm excited to take advantage of this, and I think it's going to be great for our bottom line revenue. So you guys should all activate that if you can. I think that's a great way to go. Okay, let's see. So there is another upcoming change, and this one is a bit of a bummer because it's such an issue for a lot of people. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's a good solution for this anywhere. But I'm really curious to know what you guys think about safety recalls and Turo unlisting vehicles when these recalls happen. I would love for you guys to comment down below and let me know what you think about it. And if you're liking this video so far, be sure to hit that like button and show me your support. Okay, so let's talk about safety recalls and cars getting unlisted. So Turo is going to start automatically canceling trips that start within a 7-day period from when that recall hits their system and your car gets unlisted. It gives the guest plenty of time to rebook another car, and then you're not sending somebody out in a vehicle that may potentially be unsafe. Now, basically what they're going to do from that point on is as long as the recall is open, and that is what that VIN number is status is showing, they will continue to cancel trips as they come up. And that is very difficult because oftentimes as a host, you just feel like you're stuck, and sometimes there isn't a fix for the recall at that point in time, and you may be waiting literally months on end until there is a fix in place through the manufacturer. So it can be very frustrating because there's just pretty much nothing you can do as a host, and you continue to bear the cost of having that vehicle and not being able to move forward. So I do wish that there was some sort of middle ground where, depending on the type of recall, Turo could override that unlisting and go ahead and list that vehicle back onto the platform. Now, I imagine that this must serve as a huge loss for them as well. If your car gets unlisted and they're having to cancel trips, of course they're losing business. So it's a lose-lose situation on both ends, and it's very difficult. So Turo, I hope you guys have a fix in the future for this because it can be very frustrating as a host, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. I know I've had cars get unlisted because of recalls, and these recalls have really lasted months on end. So how do you avoid something like this happening? Now, from my years of doing this, what I can tell you is that before you go into any car, you definitely want to do some research on how that car history has been with safety recalls. You can find a ton of information in the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration database online. I think it's like nhtsa.gov. You can see the history, you can go through the forums, and there's just tons of information. You guys can also reference this video above that I made about Mercedes-Benz's being notorious for recalls, so definitely stay away from that make for sure. So that would be my pro tip for you guys, is just really do your research before getting into a car. And if you see that the car has a long history of open safety recalls, then I would avoid it at all costs because the risk is absolutely just way too high. And clearly Turo doesn't have a fix in place for this, and they may not ever be able to if it's dealing with safety, and that can be a huge liability for yourself, for them, and for the driver, and we want to keep everyone safe. Okay, and the next update, which I am not so happy about at all, and it's interesting. So I'm just going to give you guys my 2 cents on it. So they are making an update to their cleaning and smoking policy. Now, if you've been on the platform for really any amount of time, it could be a couple of weeks to a couple of months, it is likely that you have experienced somebody smoking in your car or bringing your car back filthy, or maybe just not treating it as well as you would have treated it, because unfortunately that is inevitably a part of this business and you will encounter that no matter what. And of course, as host, we want to pride ourselves on providing cars that are spectacular, well maintained, very clean, and so that the guest has a great experience. So Turo is making some changes to their cleaning policies. Basically, here's what it says. It says that guests don't expect to clean cars before returning them. I agree with that, especially if any dirtiness is just a result of normal use, like sand from the beach or snow from the mountains. When guests are abusive or careless with vehicles, however, it can cost hosts valuable time and money. Very true. So we're bringing our policies more in line with typical consumer expectations while emphasizing respectfulness and our zero tolerance smoking policy. So as hosts, we will be able to charge a $150 penalty for excessive cleaning incidents after providing evidence to Turo's customer service. Okay, so that's pretty standard. That's something that they've already had set in place. Here's the kicker. The post-trip cleaning will no longer be available. So as a host right now, you can set an extra that people can add onto their trips for post-trip cleaning. Now, I love this feature because for me personally, I make sure that before every single trip, my cars are thoroughly washed inside and out. They get a fresh wash. They are freshly vacuumed, sanitized. I mean, they are detailed to the T. Tires are armor-alled and the car looks beautiful every single time it goes on. But of course, with that, there is definitely a cost associated with it, and also it takes quite a bit of time to prep every single car. Now, I do agree if somebody is just renting a car for a day or two and there's just some normal wear on the car just from driving it around, that stuff is just normal, comes along with it. And I personally don't expect any of my guests to take time out of their trip to stop and wash a car. However, I would love it if Turo operated similar to Airbnb, to where you can build in a cleaning fee into the experience that you're providing, because as a host, there is a cost to this and there's a lot of time that goes into it. And quite honestly, I think that by taking away this trip extra, which by the way already isn't mandatory, so it's really to the discretion of the guest, I think that it is going to sort of demotivate hosts from wanting to keep their cars super clean and giving it to their guest in spectacular condition, because now it's harder to get paid for that time and for that service. So we're going out of our way to provide this amazing experience, but how do you compensate yourself? Now, you can try to cushion it into your day rates, but that can get tough and kind of mess with your listings and your performance if you are priced too high and you price yourself out of the market. So I think that that's a pretty negative change that is going to have, an effect on the host community, especially during the times that we're living in right now, where sanitization and disinfecting is so important. In fact, Turo makes you kind of go through this cleaning course to make sure that you understand how to properly disinfect and sanitize your car. So when you're going the extra mile and, making sure that you are purchasing these additional products and such, you want to be able to compensate that. So I think the best thing that Turo can do in this scenario is help us structure our listings so that cleaning can be built into it, much like Airbnb is. And a guest shouldn't have to stop and get the car clean, because we want to maintain one streamlined standard. So a host should always take care of the cleaning, but we should have that built into our listings and in the cost of renting a vehicle. I think that that is definitely fair. So I would love to know what you guys think about this change. I'm not so happy about it, but let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'm super interested in knowing what the feedback is. Now let's go over some of the other policies that they are implementing. So it says the current smoking with evidence fee will increase to $250, and the odor only smoking violation and associated $50 fee will no longer be available. I'm actually cool with that. And I think that smoking in a vehicle is so severe because even with ozone machines and deodorizers, it's very difficult to get that smell out, and it's quite irritating for the guests who have trips coming up to have to experience that because of one guest. So having a very severe smoking fee of $250 is, I think, great, and that can allow a host to really get their car properly and professionally detailed without having to absorb the expense of that, and it can be very time consuming. So good job, Turo, on doing that. And then it has a couple of things too where they are going to provide some resources to hosts who have the all-star host status, and they can get no smoking signs and some cleaning supplies and such through Turo Shop, which is cool for them to offer those resources. And if you want to learn how to become an all-star host, check out my website, powerhost.club, and I do have an entire course on how the Turo business works. So a lot of change is really coming down the pipeline, and I think the most notable thing that stood out about all of these cleaning fees is that it is going to be very evidence-based and evidence-driven, as it should be, right? So if somebody is smoking, I find that 90% of the time, anyone who smokes in the car typically does leave evidence behind. Now, you may have to thoroughly search the car and look below the mats to find that ash, but usually if they're smoking in your car, they're not exactly savvy enough to get it cleaned and to try to hide the evidence. So just make sure that when you are checking out of your trips that you are really thoroughly taking photos that are very clear that you can then submit for evidence to claim your cleaning fees, particularly with smoking, or if there is excessive cleaning incidents taking place. So that's very important, especially with like pet hair or mud. I know, they singled out sand in a car, but my goodness, have you ever tried to get sand out of a car or the carpets of your vehicle? It is close to impossible to get sand out. It's never ending. So it's a bummer that you can't charge for that, because that's another one of those incidents that is very difficult. So a lot of changes coming down the pipeline. I wanted to break them down for you guys and kind of give you guys my feedback as a host who has been on Turo since way back in the day, since they were actually relay rides. So it's interesting to see all these changes. I see that they're trying to streamline the marketplace, but I think it's also very important to protect the interests of the host as well, and keep us motivated in providing a phenomenal experience for our guests, because that's the thing that keeps the machine churning over and over and over again and gets people to come back and rent again. So we want to take care of our cars, we want to earn more money, and I think some of these policies are going to help towards that, and some of these are going to be demotivating. So that's just my take on all the different changes coming up. I will link this article in the description down below so that you guys can take a look at it, and I cannot wait to hear your guys' input on some of these changes and what you think about it, and really what's the future of Turo given some of the changes that we're seeing. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I had to bring you these updates since they are going into effect quite soon here. Just a reminder, most of them take place this upcoming Monday, July 19th. So make sure you triple check your settings. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this channel, be sure to subscribe. Once again, my name is Saimah, and this is Saimah's Experience. Take care, everybody, and be well.